Abraham Lincoln is probably one of the most famous American presidents of all time. He led the United States through a devastating civil war between April 1861 and May 1865, in which more than 620,000 Americans died. Lincoln is perhaps best known for his opposition to slavery. In January 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all slaves to be free. What is less known about Lincoln, however, is that he and his wife Mary both had a deep affection for Scotland. The couple had planned to travel here at the end of his presidency. What's also relatively unknown is that Scotland is home to the only American Civil War monument outside the United States. The monument features a statue of the former president himself. It was the first ever statue of an American president to be erected outside of the United States. Lincoln often spoke of his ambition to travel to Scotland. As a teenager, Lincoln had become acquainted with the works of Robert Burns, after a Scottish immigrant teacher by the name of Jack Kelso gave young Abe his first book of poetry by Scotland's national bard. It was his exposure to the works of Burns that cultivated in Lincoln a deep respect for Scotland, the Scots language, Scottish history, and indeed, the people of Scotland. Mary also shared her husband's love of Scotland. The couple named their third son William Wallace Lincoln after the great hero of Scotland's independence. Tragically, their son died in the White House at just 11 years of age. Lincoln himself was assassinated in April 1865, just days before the end of the Civil War. But the links between Abraham Lincoln and Scotland did not end with the president's death. For in Edinburgh's old Kelton burial ground, just a stone's throw from Kelton Hill, which overlooks the city, can be found this unique American Civil War monument. It features the statue of Lincoln without his trademark top hat, as well as the first statue to a US president to be created outside the United States. It is the only statue of Abraham Lincoln in Scotland. The statue was by American sculptor George Edwin Bissell. Bissell was the son of a quarryman and marble cutter who had served as a private in the 23rd Connecticut Volunteers, before going on to study the art of sculpture abroad, mostly in Paris, where he had lived from 1883 to 1896. The American Civil War Memorial, which is also known as the Scottish American Soldiers Monument, was dedicated on August 21, 1893, to Scots who had fought and died in that war. The base of the monument consists of polished red Aberdeen granite, with a bronze shield bearing the old US flag, and is wreathed in thistles to the left, and cotton to the right. The two regimental flags depicted lie furled, signifying that the battle is over. A black man holds a book, indicating that he is not only free, he is also now educated. The monument was built, at American expense, to honor a small group of Scots who had fought for the Union Army against the Confederate forces of the South. The inscription reads, "To preserve the jewel of liberty in the framework of freedom," a quotation from the writings of Abraham Lincoln. First opened in 1718, the old Kelton burial ground is dominated by a huge obelisk soaring 90 feet into the sky. It was constructed to commemorate 5 political reformists from the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The cemetery would eventually become the final resting place of thousands of local citizens, among the most notable being the philosopher David Hume, scientist John Playfair and publishers William Blackwood and Archibald Constable. Calton Hill, which overlooks Old Calton Burial Ground, is culturally significant for its famous views of Edinburgh. The National Monument, on top of Calton Hill, was designed as a replica of the Parthenon in Athens. It was intended to commemorate the Scottish servicemen who died in the Napoleonic Wars, but was never completed, leaving just the 12 columns that can be seen today. Nevertheless, Edinburgh is often referred to as the Athens of the North because of this monument. Old Calton Burial Ground was altered following the construction of a new road, Waterloo Place, in 1819. This divided the graveyard into 2 sections. The burial ground, including its stone walls and monuments, are protected as a Category A listed building. Until the 18th century, residents of Calton, then a village at the western base of Calton Hill, had buried their dead at South Leith Parish Church. However, this was so inconvenient that, in 1718, the Society of the Incorporated Trades of Calton bought a half-acre of ground at a cost of just over £1,000, for use as a burial ground for the village. The Society of the Trades of Calton expanded the burial ground a number of times. When the new road was built, it cut through the cemetery, and some bodies and stones had to be removed to New Calton Burial Ground less than half a mile away. Several of the more substantial stones were also re-erected at New Calton Burial Ground, which lies on a steep south-facing slope providing excellent views over Holyrood Palace, the Scottish Parliament and Arthur's Seat. Of particular interest at New Calton Burial Ground is the Stevenson family plot, the resting place of several notable members of the family of the Scottish novelist, Robert Louis Stevenson. Also of note here is the Watch Tower, which was designed to prevent thieves from snatching the bodies of the recently deceased. At the time, only corpses of executed criminals could be used for medical research. Such was the demand for cadavers. Body snatching was a lucrative trade. This resulted in many cemeteries going to great lengths to prevent body snatching, including the construction of watch towers, where the cemetery keeper and members of his family would live. The 3-story watch tower at New Calton Burial Ground is now in such a poor state of repair that it is currently on the Historic Buildings at Risk Register. Unbelievably, the tower was once home to a family of 10. The American Civil War Monument cost $5,000 to construct and was subscribed in $100 subscriptions from 50 Americans, including business magnates Cornelius Vanderbilt, William Rockefeller and William Waldorf Astor. Among the 50 who also subscribed to the monument was the Scots-born American industrialist Andrew Carnegie, who was born in Dunfermline in 1835. A request for its construction was made to the City Council, in a letter from the United States Consul Mr. Wallace Bruce, in July 1892. The Council gave their approval that a monument should be provided for pensioned Scottish-American soldiers in the Old Calton Cemetery, on a piece of ground measuring 14 feet by 14 feet, and situated about 16 feet north of David Hume's mausoleum. The monument commemorates Sergeant Major John McEwen, who served with Company H, 65th Regiment Illinois Volunteer Infantry, Lieutenant Colonel William L. Duff, of the 2nd Regiment, Illinois Volunteer Light Artillery, Robert Steedman of Company E, 5th Regiment Maine Volunteer Infantry, James Wilkie, of Company C, 1st Regiment Michigan Volunteer Cavalry, Robert Ferguson, of Company F, 57th New York Volunteer Infantry, and Alexander Smith of Company G, 66th Regiment New York Volunteer Infantry. Alexander Smith's name was only added to the memorial in 1993, following research. Of these former Union Army soldiers commemorated, only William Duff is buried under the monument itself, as he died of his wounds on return to his native Edinburgh. Today, visitors to the old Kelton burial ground are often surprised to see Abraham Lincoln's statue here. That includes most of the American tourists visiting Edinburgh. Most have no idea that this was not only the first statue to a US president to be erected outside the United States, but the only American Civil War monument to exist anywhere in the world outside the borders of the USA. Scratch beneath the surface, and you will find many more surprising things about Scotland that few people, including Scots themselves, know anything about. For more videos on Scotland, like, share, and subscribe to the Scotland channel. Visit our website, thescotlandchannel.tv, for details of our films and for information on how you can support our channel.